Joining us now, Phil Kline. Phil is the former Attorney General of the state of Kansas. Phil has been very crucial in these voter fraud allegations coming out, and Pennsylvania is a swing state, very crucial, as you know, to Trump's election. We got a lot of lawless voting activity going on, money being backed by Zuckerberg. We're going to get a full update from Phil Kline. Hey, Phil, great to have you with us, man.
Thank you, John. Good to be with you, sir.
Sorry we're a little behind today. Phil, give us an update. Now, Trump won a victory in Wisconsin yesterday in not being able to count ballots after Election Day. This is a big victory, but they did lose an earlier one in Pennsylvania. They say they're going to take it to SCOTUS. Give us an update on that, Phil.
Well, as you know, John, across the nation, what you see is blue state governors or secretaries of state trying to push the ballot collection and counting after the election. And there's a couple of specific concerns here. First of all, many of these states have mailed out the absentee ballots postage prepaid, which means they won't have a postmark. And so when these ballots are coming back, all state laws say you can only count ballots that are received by a certain date if they have a postmark by Election Day. Well, what you're going to see is you're going to see them saying, well, wait a minute, they don't have postmarks because we mail them postage prepaid, so we've got to collect all ballots, wherever they come from, whether they have a postmark or not, for several days after the election. And what that allows, think about this, we've got for the first time drop boxes everywhere. We've got mobile pickup units with Zuckerberg money. We've got no ways of tracking these ballots as they move out of the state to make sure that the voter has actually cast the ballot rather than somebody else. It's going to be chaos if this is allowed. So last night, the Supreme Court rejected an effort to extend the deadline by a federal judge in Wisconsin. And we hope we're going to see more of those cases. We just won a case last night in Pennsylvania in which they had mailed out 27,000 flawed ballots in Allegheny County. And to fix it, they mailed out 27,000 more ballots to the same people. And we were in a position where they were saying, well, we're just going to count these ballots. No, you're not going to count these ballots. People can't vote twice. So we have all kinds of challenges out there from the left that are concerning and undermining the integrity of voting. And since I last spoke with you, John, what we learned about Pennsylvania is that the Zuckerberg money is actually paying the election judges in Philadelphia, dictating how many polling places Philadelphia has and paying the people who are going to determine what ballots are counted and what the final tally is.
So, Phil Kline, let me ask you this. The Supreme Court yesterday voted with the Trump administration lawsuit, with the Trump lawsuit, or not Trump administration, I misspoke, Trump campaign, big difference, lawsuit. They voted not to extend receiving ballots in Wisconsin after Election Day. So if that ballot is not in by November 3rd, it's trash, right? I mean, that was the ruling, which is the way it should be, right?
It won't count. Yeah.
Right, it won't count. Now, but Roberts voted for that. On paper, to the layman, it looks like he voted the other way in Pennsylvania. Why?
Well, he voted the other way earlier out of Carolina. It was a case out of Carolina.
Oh, Carolina.
And what he did, well, there's a Pennsylvania case up there as well. What he did is he said this, and I don't believe the distinction holds. He says, look, when we're dealing with Pennsylvania, we're dealing with a state law and the state Supreme Court saying that this is allowed. When we're up here on with the Wisconsin case, it's a federal judge that decided to engage. So that judge should not interfere with the election process, but I'm not going to question the state Supreme Court as they interpret their law. But there comes a point in time, John, when a state ignores the clear meaning of the law. So what should the court do? And Pennsylvania also had a very specific law that votes will not be counted after the election unless they were postmarked. And the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, which is elected and has a majority of Democrats, has eliminated that and said we're going to accept ballots up to 3 days after. We agree with the Secretary of State that you can't reject the ballot if the signatures don't match. That can't be the reason that you reject it. And they are one by one eliminating some of these protections to the integrity of the ballot in Pennsylvania. And so I was disappointed with Roberts' writings and why he justified rejecting Pennsylvania. And you're right, it was Pennsylvania. I was thinking about another case in Carolina, why he rejected Pennsylvania. But at this occasion, he's saying federal judges are not going to be able to step in and stop the application of state law. And what you read from Kavanaugh and from Gorsuch is particularly on point in this latest opinion. What they state is, look, we have adjusted, and states have adjusted dramatically to COVID. People have more opportunities to vote than they ever have before. We've extended deadlines. We've mailed things out postage prepaid. We've mailed out absentee ballots without them having to request them. We've extended in-person voting. We've, with Zuckerberg money in some areas, magnified the number of polling places that people can go to. And this is not necessary for federal courts to change the rules of the game in the middle of the game. So that holds very well for election night challenges. As you can imagine, on election night, you're going to see all over the nation people unilaterally trying to alter these laws and change how and what type of votes we accept. And what the Supreme Court said yesterday is we're not going to allow that, at least not by federal courts.
I get Wisconsin. That's settled, right? Wisconsin settled. SCOTUS settled it. Is there a recourse in North Carolina? Because the North Carolina judges, let's get back to that. Phil Kline with us, former Attorney General of Kansas, also an expert on election law and the ballot fraud that's going on. So, Phil, in North Carolina, they had 12 judges there, 9-3 or 8-4 or something. Those judges voted to extend North Carolina for 2 weeks or something. The three judges that voted no urged the Trump campaign to send this to the Supreme Court ASAP. I'm doing this from memory. Where are we with that?
Well, it's still going up. And I think, especially with Barrett on the bench, I don't think Roberts' concern about whether this is emanating through the state or emanating through federal court is going to hold. And I would be, historically, the Supreme Court of the United States has not been accommodating to changing the rules in the middle of the game as it relates to an election. I mean, you think about that. You're in the fifth inning of a baseball game, and in all the preparation for the game, everybody knows the rules and knows what's going to happen. And then suddenly in the fifth inning, an umpire says, no, we're going to change the rule. A single is now a triple, and a home run is an out. And you haven't prepared for any of that stuff. And suddenly the rules of the game change to favor one side over another. And the court's saying, we can't do that. The Supreme Court of the United States has historically said you cannot do that. You've got to abide by what the state legislature has put into law. Now, I believe with Barrett on the court, all of these cases, whether they emanate through a state court finding or whether they come through federal court in what is called friendly lawsuits, where the left sues the left, the League of Women Voters sues a Democrat attorney general, and they try to work out an arrangement, and they all agree that whoever is suing is going to get what they want. Wherever it comes from, this court's going to step in and say, enough is enough. You can't do this. So I think we're in a much stronger position. And, John, on election night, what we're going to see is an effort to count the unpostmarked absentee ballots. The absentee ballots where we don't know whether they were mailed or in a drop box or in a warehouse or where they came from, that we're supposed to start counting them. And I think we stand in a much better position to prevent that. And I say we, anybody who is concerned about election integrity with how the election is being operated.
The key is Amy Coney Barrett being there. You got to get the North Carolina suit up to SCOTUS. Obviously, you got 5 days to do that, discounting the weekend. Hey, Phil Kline, thanks for being with us. Phil Kline, former Attorney General of Kansas, also working diligently on being sure that the voting process we have has some level of integrity to it. Hey, Phil, thanks for being with us. We'll have you back in the next week to get an update. Thank you so much. John Fredericks Radio Network.